set up.
We have started recording,
Yeah, gotcha.
YouTube broadcasting now.
Okay. Good evening. We'll call to order the City of Wildwood Board of Public Safety meeting Thursday, October 16th. The meeting is scheduled to start at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be held in person at City Hall in the community room, and also a Zoom webinar platform is available. It's also being broadcast on the City of Wildwood's YouTube channel. First order of business, roll call.
Marshall Bader,
Here.
Board Member Gleason,
Here.
Board Member Loyal,
Here.
Board Member Wilson,
Here.
Second item of business is the approval of minutes. The first meeting of June 19, 2025, which was sent back reminder revision. First motion I will entertain is a motion to approve the minutes from the June 19, 2025 meeting. Mr. Wilson,
I've got a correction in the minutes, Marshall.
do you have a correction to them?
I do. It still shows that I attended by Zoom. I did not attend that June 19 meeting in person by Zoom.
We can make that correction if you're okay with that. It's
That's
fine
fine.
if you want to do that.
Make a motion?
The motion to approve it with the intended correction. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Just a discussion question.
Sure.
There's one other correction. That board member Vanek was not at that meeting. So section 2 of the June 19th meeting,
Do we know who made that first motion?
he wasn't even there. No, I didn't either.
Mr. Gleason made second motion.
I just made the motion. You approve it?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm just asking, the earlier one's correct. There's another mistake there. He wasn't in the meeting, he wasn't on board anymore. I didn't say he made the motion. We could look at the tape, I guess, and you could correct it.
Yeah, the tape is,
It probably had to be one of the 4 people on the top.
For the April meeting?
yeah, I know.
The
there-
approval of the April 17th minutes.
The June
It's the
meeting.
June meeting approving the April 7th.
And the tape is really difficult to read. I see heads down and that's kind of talking, but it was.
We can certainly make both those changes if
Yeah.
that's fine with the board.
Any other noted additions to that? We have a motion to approve it with the stated corrections and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed, motion carries. The minutes for the June 19th meeting have been approved. Second item is to approval of the minutes from the August 8th meeting. You should have a draft made available to you. Any motion to approve the minutes from the August 8th meeting? And I'm sorry, it's the August 7th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The August 7th minutes have been approved. Next order of business is public comment.
We have one from Jordan, excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I just wanted to raise the issue of Turnberry.
And you get to state your name.
Sure. Thank you. Lauren Jordan with Ward 2. So I just wanted to bring up the issue of Turnberry Place Drive and Strecker, which I know several members here are aware of. But I did want to just get some feedback about the entrance as it is normally called, but we consider it a emergency access point there. And it's been part of the neighborhood for over 20, I think close to 30 years. I've given public comment before, but not at this safety board meeting. And so what I wanted to do is get feedback about what standards are necessary to consider it a emergency entrance point, access point, and whether or not it complicates anything for our emergency services. as well as get feedback on whether or not anything about the current configuration needs to be changed in order to meet those standards. I don't know if that is something that you guys can offer feedback, this group can offer feedback on directly right now, but we did submit a what is it called? Well, it's not quite an appeal, but a request for reassessment from Mr. Brown's office, and I think he's in the process of responding to us. But I just wanted to touch base and better understand the position of this board so that we can best address any feedback from Mr. Brown.
So board members, this is not on your agenda. This is a time for public comment, and since it's not on the agenda, I don't believe it would be appropriate to discuss it in depth. It can be on a future agenda if that's the desire of the board. It is being acted on by Department of Public Works currently under the policy that was passed by the city council. If you recall, I think it was the April meeting, this was in front of you. I'll ask the motion, actually two motions relative to that issue. The passage of both those issues essentially resulted in the council putting a policy together, and we can forward that to you if you'd like to see it, which has been the direction that's been taken on basically on the direction of the city council. The policy was enacted and the department has been following that policy that's been enacted. So it is in progress. I will be responding shortly to the HOA.
One other issue, Mr. Brown, or Director Brown, initially, and I was wondering if I could get feedback on whether or not my email was perhaps sent to a different folder or blocked, just so we can have open communication and remedy any issues in the future.
We can certainly talk about that offline if you like.
Yeah, I'd be
I
happy
don't
to.
know, yes, the first initial email, for whatever reason, I did not receive it. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, it's just that's not an argument, but like it's the second time that it happens. I do want to make sure that I'm able to communicate, and make sure that we don't miss any deadlines or anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
First email sent?
When was it sent?
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up, but Bridget's email does state the date, Bridget Fisher, that it was sent. I'm afraid that it's been put in the spam folder. I don't know how the Wildwood City government emails work, but
No, I see an email from you. I didn't get the most recent one, but I see one from you and Bridget Dolan.
well, that's one that Bridget forwarded. I will have sent one maybe a week, even 2 weeks before that.
Well, we can talk offline, but I want to make sure it's getting through as well.
Appreciate that. Okay, well, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'll leave, so unless, all right, thanks.
Any more people signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
And we will close the public comment section and move on for.
I do have one attendee.
Sir.
Teresa, did you have a public comment?
No, I'm good.
She's good.
We will then close public comment section and move on to the information section. First item is the update on the MoDOT city projects. I believe Mr. Brown, are you on this one?
I'll start off, and if anybody wants to add, they certainly can. This was the update, the monthly update. I think I provided it now for a couple months to you as board members of projects that have been underway this summer, both MoDOT and city projects. I think the short summary here is that, especially given the weather, the progress has been very good this summer, and the projects have either been completed or will be completed shortly. Most of the 100 work that MoDOT has been doing on the J-turns is getting close to being completed, if I understand. The asphalt has pretty much been laid. The J-turns have been constructed. They will be doing the final striping later this month, and any final restoration that needs to be done will occur as well. You might be aware of the signals at Clayton Road on 109 and Shepherd Road in 109. Those have been replaced by MoDOT and are operating, although MoDOT has been struggling, at least in my estimation, to a degree, getting them properly timed and coordinated. So there's been engineers on site evaluating the performance of the signals, trying to optimize the traffic flow. It's been a bit challenging, I think, in the morning. But I think it's getting better overall. So the city did pitch in about 125,000 on the MoDOT signals at 109 in Clayton and 109 in Shepherd. If you're not aware of that, we paid a little extra money to have them add the LED street name signs on those signals, which is consistent with what we've done in town center. And then we paid a little extra to have them black finish instead of the standard galvanized finish or aluminum. So we just wanted to make you aware of that as well. So any particular questions from the board? I'll do my best to address them.
J turns at Pond and 100. Is the straight through on Pond being demolished?
The left turn lane, like to make it a left.
Straight through. The Pond straight through. Will you be, when they're finished, will you be able to go straight through Pond across 100?
No, there'll be a raised concrete island that's constructed shortly. The only movement that you'll be able to make at that intersection is that westbound left turn to go south.
Right turn.
No,
Westbound
you'll be able to
left
make
turn.
one left. So if you're heading eastbound towards town center, you will not be able to make a left on, after the median's installed, you will not be able to make a left onto Pond. When you're heading westbound out to the rural portion of Wildwood, you will be able to make a left onto Pond, but that other left-hand motion was restricted. That was a request from our residents.
So you'll be able to make a left turn westbound from 100 to Pond. You will not be able to go straight through.
Yep.
On Pond, correct? That's correct. I know you've got they've got barricades up now, but it was reported to me that there was a herd of cyclists who just blew right through Pond.
So the
Straight through Pond, went right through the barricades and didn't pay
cyclists will
attention.
be allowed to go through. That is one, I guess, that is the exception. We did design it. It is going to be allowable for the cyclists to go through.
They'll still be able to go straight through on Pond. Okay. Thank you.
Would that be the same at Highway T, the same, where you can't go straight across?
That is correct, although at Highway T, you can still make the main line left turn. So the westbound left and the eastbound lefts are allowable at T.
Okay.
And then we've designed it with a small gap to allow the cyclist to cut straight through.
So Rick, you said that's the final stripings. All right.
It should be.
I happened to drive that the other night and I was like, this first time leaving the dinner and I was like, where am I going?
It's just challenging right now. I don't have an exact date for you, but I would expect the striping to occur within the hopefully next week.
Okay.
It'll be a fair amount of work, but they should be out there shortly.
Well, I will say the pavement's much smoother on 100.
Yes, it is.
Any other questions for Mr. Brown? Next item of business is the update on the Lafayette and Green Pine School traffic circulation.
So I'm gonna let Captain take the lead in this one. We talked about this, I think, at the prior meeting, and he's got an update to share.
So, yeah, I've had a lot of contact with the principals at both Lafayette and Green Pines. Lafayette has become much smoother. There's still some issues in the morning. A lot of that has to do with, or had to do with the electric signals. They were on a time cycle, I think, at those two intersections, and now I believe they're cycling. So that's something we'll still monitor. But for the most part, the newness of school year is over. Everybody's kind of in a routine. I've sat up there several times. It's pretty efficient. The morning time is, everybody comes at one time. At night, or in the afternoon, I should say, people leave at different times, so there's really no backups out to 109. A couple cars will end up, held on Clayton Road to make the right turn in, but once it goes, it goes pretty quick. So it's just a volume, high volume, coming in there in the morning. Green Pines, as far as I could tell, there were no issues in the morning. And you might go by there.
No, seems to be working.
And in the afternoon, our last thing, and we'll lead into what Rick will address shortly. The parents waiting on southbound West Glen Farms, waiting to turn into the gate. The gate gets opened at about 3:05, and that's due to their outside recess or class is about 3 o'clock when it ends, and that's when they go inside. They got to get them inside and locked down, and then somebody has to get back out there within a couple minutes and open that gate for the parents to start coming in. Once they open the gate, anything on the street is gone. We've posted, or Rick has had signs posted for no parking. There was already a sign there, but it was kind of at the top of the hill by itself around the curve. Leading up to this, I had officers go by, talk to the parents, let them know this is coming. It's just downhill curve. It's a bad spot to have people parking on the one side, forcing traffic more or less into the oncoming lane that can't see traffic coming up, and the people coming up the hill can't see people coming down. So the parking on the side of the street's eliminated. We'll keep an eye on that, but for the most part, like I said, once that gate's open, it goes really fast. It's almost amazing how fast they can get traffic in there and get them out of there. So
You wanna wait to talk about that, Rick, or do you want, I have just a question?
Well, on the agenda tonight, we have an item to restrict the parking in that location.
That's a question, so we'll hold on to the agenda, okay.
that's all I got for the two schools.
Next item of business is the school zone signage review.
Board members, wanted to provide an update. This was on your last meeting agenda. It referenced it at that time. We did complete our review and installation of signage primarily at the Wildwood area public schools and the ones that are located on Wildwood maintained roadway. So if you're curious, I tried to break down the specific changes that we made per school in my memorandum to you. Dustin did the work, got the signs ordered, and has had them installed for a while now. And so I think we've been able to get that done in good fashion. So I think all the schools should be in good shape relative to the required signage that we need to have in place per the manual and uniform traffic control devices. I would say, and I made reference, I think, last meeting, we could do more if we have money to do it, which is an issue these days with our budget, frankly. But I did list some possible enhancements, and if we had monies available in the budget or maybe in a future year, we could look to adding flashing beacons on a lot of our existing speed limit schools, speed limit signs. And then the other potential enhancement would be at Old Fairway Elementary. We have at least 2 mid-block crosswalks that we could consider putting the rapid flashing beacons on them in the future if that was something that was desired. So right now, I don't know that we have monies budgeted or plan to be budgeted to do that, but certainly in the future, that is a possibility. With that, I'll close. If there's any questions,
If I'm wrong, most of this work's being done just become compliant with, not compliant, but compliant with some industry standards.
It was a review to make sure that we were compliant with the most recent edition of the manual and uniform traffic control devices, yes.
Is that solely funded by the city? Does the school district participate in any way, funding for school zone signage or enhancements?
Well, certainly if we wanted to explore enhancements, that could be something we bring up with the school district. Maybe after they get a property tax increase in place, they might be receptive to that. But so far, they have not participated with our signage. I wouldn't expect them to, but if we want and wanted to pursue additional enhancements like that, I don't feel that would be unreasonable to at least bring that up or ask.
Yeah, speaking to that a little bit, I mean, we got lucky in a sense, St. Louis County is gonna help us out there. by the end of 2026, they will be installing flashing beacons over at Dartmouth Crest and Clayton Road. So that's been incorporated into their plans, which is great. Should be done before next winter. That said, maybe, I mean, at least when we had that discussion, when funding for it was still up in the air, the school district was receptive to helping in some way. It wasn't necessarily a complete shutdown. We could explore that further if it was something we wanted to look at for these other schools.
We weren't able to do anything with state highways, obviously, because they control signage on those highways.
We did not review the state routes or the county route at Lafayette directly because that's under their control, not the city's control. That's correct. And I think the question also came up about private schools. I don't believe we have any private schools on Wildwood streets. We only have a few, and I believe they would be on either MoDOT, ones I was thinking about were MoDOT or county, but not Wildwood streets. So if I'm wrong, let me know that.
All right, looks like our next item of business is old business with no items listed. Following that, we have new business and we have a review of the 2026 police expense budget.
Let me start. So our staffing would stay the same. The big change will be an increase of about 3% on the cost. Our budget isn't really a budget. It's a cost sheet for the staffing that we provide to the precinct. With that, keeping in line with the industry, officers received a raise at the beginning of 25, which will obviously carry on into 26. So that cost request is being submitted to the city. That's our cost of an officer. What figures in to an officer's pay is their actual pay, their benefits that go on top of that, and then we add in cost of using a car and things like that. So there is no breakout of you pay for X number of cars. It's when you get an officer, it's expected that he has a car, and this is on average what it costs for an officer to use a car. So if you were to take that big number and divide it by 34, that would tell you the per officer cost. I don't recall what it is offhand. It's about 135,000, something like that. So they're not getting that pay, but that's what it's costing us. The staff member that puts this together, he put an item down there, item number 7, that shows this is actually we're losing in our contracts. So expect in the next year it'll be an increase again as we move along.
So,
and one more thing, sorry, Vince, our per officer cost is based on the average of each rank. So for average police officers, average sergeants, average lieutenants, average captain. So it's not actual. So if I'm on the top end of the pay, you're gonna pay what a median captain makes. It makes the billing much easier that this is what it is. We transfer people or someone gets promoted and moves on, we bring somebody else in. They might be a senior officer or a junior officer. So it could be month to month trying to adjust, who's actually here. It goes on average. And the same thing with overtime. We do an average rate for overtime for events. Each year the city gives us about 20 to 25 events that we will staff. And we do a very good job, I think, of using our precinct staff to staff our events, that we don't usually have to go outside and draw in other department staff members to help out. They do, and it's usually officers that have worked here. Our biggest event is we just had Celebrate Wildwood. That is very labor intensive because it goes from early morning to almost midnight by the time everybody gets out of here. So it in a nutshell. The other sheet I haven't distributed, Tom, unless you want me to.
Oh, yeah, we can go ahead. I would just make a note, we were working on this capital sheet. The one thing we wanted to talk about just with our Director of Public Works here too is the speed feedback flood warning equipment that's planned on here. I know that he's
No,
looked
that's
into
fine.
this based off a previous directive from this board. That's it. The only other note, this was being configured, so one small change to the, if you don't mind scrolling. One small change to the presented budget, can you go all the way down to the spreadsheet? Thank you. Right here. One small change, we had a placeholder in here at 20,000 for capital equipment, and that's under the Prop P, machinery and equipment. That would be reflective of what's approved tonight, so just note that that change has been made and we can go through these one at a time. That said, just more generally speaking, I'll speak a little bit to the overall budget. We, 3% is consistent with previous raises that we've seen, so it's pretty in line there. But that said, I did just want to call out that we, as the rest of the council looks at this too, we'll just have to start planning. Just for your all's input, our revenue is pretty stagnant for fiscal year 2026. So I just wanted to call that out. As we go forward, it'll most likely become more and more of a discussion topic.
Yeah, on that sheet that we got from the county, what is that debit number? I don't understand that negative number.
That is from my understanding, Kevin, it's there is a provision in our contract that this is part of the contract that it gets renewed each year, and this is recorded as an addendum to the agreement. That said, what this is practically saying is that negative number is actually what they wish they could be charging for the actual services presented, but since we have a cap included in our contract, it's capped at that amount. So it's what I looked at it as, it's an indication that we'll be looking at another increase for next year and we need to prepare for it.
Let me add something to that. So
Sure.
the cap in the contract is actually 5%. After discussions with the chief, we are late in the year. Tom's been working on his budget, and for us to walk in October and say, hey, by the way, it's a 5% increase. We tried to stay in line with what we've done, which was more or less what was expected, as opposed to, you didn't expect this, now redo your budget. So I hope that's a demonstration that, that we're partners in this and we're working.
Yeah, and I can back that up. It was originally at 5 and it was reduced with the chief's blessing, of course, and the city does appreciate that. That 3% was around the number we were planning for when we were starting to put projections together, so it's relatively consistent now that it's 3.
So basically, if you look at the, it's about what, $84,000 increase?
Is it 156 if you do the net from last year?
I'm just looking at estimated 2025.
Oh,
82,872.
To the contract, it's 156, but then the budget's a little different because that includes our assistant prosecuting attorney.
Okay, yeah, okay. So what's the change in St. Louis County's proposal?
That's 156.
156?
Yeah.
And back to what the captain said about, estimating, it all balances out, I'm sure, as far as positioning. Has there ever been an occasion when it's been necessary for county to come back and say, hey, we've had a inordinately amount of overtime necessary. We need more money for this year.
We have not here. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, we budget
regular county government stuff. Yes, they do that.
Sure.
But no, we've always stayed within our overtime budget and working operations.
That is correct. And one other note too is just the overtime portion of it. And we've been discussing this as well there, and we'll get to this with deer management too. But a portion of what the police do also offer is that we do the deer samplings each year after.
I'm sorry, what?
We do the deer samplings each
right.
year after operations, and the police conduct that for us. So it's a third party. We obviously work with White Buffalo for the actual work. So having the police collect the data with the guidance of.
That's outside of the contract. So.
Yep, that's outside of the contract. So that actually goes under the deer management fund. So just a heads up there too, because I know some folks are aware that they do assist us in that.
And they don't back charge us for fuel for their guys
Yeah.
doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it all works out.
It is what it is. Right? Any more, Vince, you good?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so the other sheet this This is our capital items request. And for the most part, these are supporting equipment that we already have in place that are owned by the city. I'll come back to the first item. Security camera expansion in anticipation of the opening of the Village Green. We built in there putting a camera, to have an eye on the Village Green. And the way that would work, it can be on a light pole over there. We'll decide where to put it, and then it would transmit a wireless signal back to the building here, which is where the main data is stored here at the City Hall building. We have the same system set up for the garage across the street. There's a set of cameras at the garage. It shoots across to the clock tower, I think. And then there's also one that shoots back here also. So that's the camera expansion. The batteries and chargers for our speed displays. I think we have 5 of those. Those are used pretty much year round, and the batteries just get eaten up. They're generally out for a week or two. We pull them back in, charge them. We have a set of batteries that we keep rotating those through, and eventually the batteries go bad on us. 3 LPR cameras. So the city pays for 3 leases on 2 flock cameras. One of them is on Highway 100 out toward the county line. The other one is on Highway 109 on the north end of the city, kind of near Wild Horse Creek. The third one is on Manchester at Pierside. We have 2 additional ones that the county has. One of them was actually purchased by the city a couple of years ago to add to the county's fleet, basically. So the county provides that, now that it's owned, provides that camera that's up on Clayton Road. And then they kind of threw in one, since we're in the game. There was a camera in front of the Lafayette High Schools that monitors traffic there, which has been very helpful when we were looking at signal timing. We can talk directly to the guy at County Highway. He can manipulate the camera and watch and count cars without leaving his office.
What has been the success with that, with the license plate readers?
Very good. Any issues we have, that's one of the first things we go to. The most recent event was I don't know, about a month or so ago.
Yeah, but that was great.
The guy that was ripping down Manchester and took out the crosswalk button or post and a bunch of trees, and he left the scene. There were witnesses say, hey, it's a gray truck. That's it. So they called and told me, hey, this is going on. I said, well, call down to our regional information center, which is run out of police headquarters. They have access to all these cameras, and within 5 minutes or so, here's the license plate of the truck that did it. So the guy did not. At one time, he lived in Wildwood, so they went to his house. He wasn't there. It was really good police work. This guy's around here, and he's been seen on that camera, before. So the officers just kind of started spreading out and checking subdivisions. He didn't pop up on other cameras, so it kind of says he's in this area. It took a lot of time, but they started running streets, and they found him parked in a driveway in Ellisville.
I assume the one at the county line is for eastbound coming in, right? Okay.
Right, incoming. And there's not a lot of traffic coming in, so if something happens, and we got an idea what we might be looking for, that gives us a start to start looking for
And
license
does it
plates.
pick up, like, I don't know, stolen plates? I mean,
Yes.
vehicles? Okay.
So
And then it notifies somebody?
yeah, so the officers can set this up on their car computers that it will alert them that, hey, one just went by there. And you can set it to all kinds of stuff, traffic warrants. Depending on where you're working,
Sure.
this thing would be buzzing all the time. So it's kind of what they set it on. The main center down in Clayton, that's what they're looking for to be clued to them. So if something triggers, they would call us. Now, early on, there was a vehicle wanted for a kidnapping. Now, unfortunately, you know, it signaled and nothing goes through Wildwood. So, hey, wait a minute, what is this? And they look at it and they were gone out of Wildwood because we were in this area and it never came back. So it turned around or went the opposite way. That's what we figured, but.
Probably a cop
So, yeah,
turn.
They work very well, so.
I think it's important to point out one of the things that Captain Mundell brought up in there is the Regional Information Center, the RIC, which is down in Clayton. Because of our partnership, the city's partnership with St. Louis County, we have access to resources that extend far beyond what we have with the men and women that occupy our precinct. We also have the resources of the Regional Information Center, and should we have need for special weapons and tactics, that's available to us. Helicopter, there's a lot of things that come with that contract that don't show up on paper, and I think that's why honestly Wildwood and the county have been such a great partnership over the years.
Absolutely. The other items toward the bottom there, the signage, bicycle parts, tools and equipment, that's just kind of miscellaneous minor expenses that come up annually. And the drone thing I put back on there. To back up, unless you want to talk about drones.
I think we should, I mean, I think I support it being on there. The department has been talking with the police too on this, and we want to incorporate some type of drone activity. The idea was to maybe start small and then expand outward. There's some really nice drones out there. So with what's budgeted here today, it seems very consistent with what we're talking about. We would maybe start with a little bit of a cheaper drone, get comfortable with it, have an officer that's trained up on it. Bring back to the board some potential samples of some video footage taken with it. The idea is not only to use this for police work, but also to leverage the officers that might have the certifications to be able to fly it, to film some footage of our events that we have, to be able to post that and get communication out, but also most importantly, having it available when we have the flooding occurrences that happen in Wild Horse Creek, or if we have, some serious water coming down Cox Creek, we're able to get that over in front of it so we can see, get some real-time footage, because you can't really get up there.
Does Public Works have a drone?
Not
Can there, would this be owned by the city? Okay, so can there be a partnership where if they would need something relative to flooding or anything else?
That's the current idea, is that, obviously it'd be available for, police and whatever they need to do with it, with potentially getting into the nooks and crannies for chasing somebody or whatever it might be. That said, if we were to need it, we could just reach out to them. And the good news is they would have, and I think you already have some officers on staff with it that have the certifications necessary. It is something too that I know the Department of Public Works and I have talked about quite a bit of potentially even having, one of our staff members get the trainings to get certified in drone.
I know the fire district has one as well. Is
Yeah,
it located?
We've got a growing number of staff that are getting certified to be able to fly it. But yeah, we use it in the parks and river and everywhere else, so.
It's a great tool in the toolbox. I think it's, and the idea too, and I know we'll talk about deer here in a moment, but one thing, it gets a little tricky because the way you have to do the sampling with it is very difficult. But if we could have multiple drones, in theory, we could actually run our own deer population surveys. The key there though is you need to have a thermal imagery component with the camera, which that is what typically knocks up the price quite a bit. So that said, just an idea though, I think, the more we proceed, I think residents too, they want to see drone footage on top of. It's a tool in the toolbox that I think it's time we get it.
Yeah, so if it's turned over to the police department, it's basically added to the police department's already established licensing and program, as opposed to if the city were to get it on their own, then they have to seek their own license and all that. So it falls under the police purview, which makes it much easier, so.
Question on a couple of years, I think it was 2 years ago on the budget, was a line item for drone, which I think never
We didn't purchase
We
it
never
that year.
did, okay.
So we had that discussion and then there was some back and forth, just a little inside baseball. and
Chinese,
yeah, so there was monies put aside in the budget. That said, the drone that was being favored at that time did come from a Chinese manufacturer. Quite frankly, that's the only ones that make good drones, so kind of come to the conclusion that if we want to get a drone, it's most likely.
$1,000 enough money?
It should be able, you can get a starter drone with that. That said, I mean, quite frankly, the idea is to get something to start us off and then test it out in the field and then have it really, I mean, that person that's gonna be flying it, show their skills. And then once that's been established, go ahead and probably come back to you all with a request to get the drone that has the thermal, and all the extra bells and whistles that I think could be useful, especially for traffic studies too, for the Green Pines or any of these places that we're looking at for parking situations. You just park that right above it. You can record 2 or 3 days and see quite a bit of change.
I know they have we learned at the Coffee with the Mayor, a month before last, that they have a drone training program at the, with community college. That's nice.
So backing up to the first item, it goes back to previous meeting where we talked about a system that would provide some kind of flood warning, particularly along Wild Horse Creek. Rick had looked into that, without quoting any prices, $100,000 potentially would have been the cost. So one of the contractors or vendors that we've dealt with that has speed equipment just happened to send some product, and I look and open it up and I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what we're looking for. So it's basically a speed feedback sign. So you'd have 2 fixed posts. All the time, basically, it's gonna give speed feedback. So it's solar powered, it's running, but it has an attachment to it. It's a cable with sensors that if there's flooding, your speed sign turns to a warning sign to say that the road's flooded or road closed or whatever we want it to say. More bang for your buck as opposed to buying a dedicated flood warning system that might get used one time in a year or maybe not at all, where most of our complaints are traffic complaints. So we have a tool that would be in use pretty much constantly for our speed issues, but has that backup ability to give warning that there's kind of flood issue. A lot of things were discussed, about having automatic gates and, different systems. And the price tag just keeps going up. If you wanted to do all kinds of stuff, they make stuff that'll do that, but it's gonna cost you a fortune to make it happen.
When that changes to, say, road closed or flooding, you have notification of that changing also?
No, like a signal to us that has happened. Generally, in our past incidents, something triggers it, either an officer on patrol is getting his wheels wet or a resident calls in and wants to know.
No, I think it's great. That's a great way to do it. Just have it, you've been told.
Yeah.
But I just was curious if.
And that was part of the discussion, that if you have a gate, well, if the gate closes automatically, what if you're stuck in between? How do you get in and out? There's all kinds of issues with that. Or, is it a signal to our communications? We send an officer out there that physically closes the gate, but somebody has to check the, whatever it is, 2 or 3 mile stretch to make sure nobody's, stopped or stuck in between. So it creates a lot of issues. And kind of the good thing is Wild Horse Creek is not a huge traffic volume road. And the people that live there know and understand, what the hazards are. But like we said, we're telling you that it's flooded up there.
The way, other than being used for traffic or speed purposes, if you thought there was flash floods warnings and you'd have to be deployed out there and somehow some sensor deployed that.
Right.
So you'd have to kind of have an inkling that there could be flash floods coming. You would deploy it and then hopefully.
It's permanent. It's a permanent.
Sensor will be there permanently.
Oh, you would put, okay, but the whole trailer wouldn't be there.
No.
Just the sensor.
It's a fixed sign. There's a cable, however long you want the cable to be to run it to where the sensor would be. and that's what triggers the sign to activate.
Okay, so that sign would always be there.
Yes.
Okay, so that wouldn't be, okay.
Nobody touches it, basically.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's what, if this can be done for this price, it's actually a good deal for it, because there's other quotes out there, but the idea is that permanent installation, it'll be serving as that nice speed feedback most of the time, but in the event that we need it, it's there for it, so. Looking into it, I think, it looks good on the front side, so I mean, if this could be done and installed for that price, I mean, it seems like a good deal. The other thing too, though, just so, I know you brought up communication of it, that potentially being flooded and us being notified, we have spoken with, the National Weather Service. USGS has gotten us some information, but the idea of maybe having them give us a heads up when the precipitation radar, identifying what level causes the flooding. It's not gonna be a perfect number, but if we have an idea of what that number is, then we would be able to get a quick email or a phone call, and we could get that out to our residents. So trying to kind of kill a couple birds with one stone here.
Yeah, just a couple things. I know that the one thing came back from that feedback that FEMA actually has, we know the state won't give us anything, but FEMA had a 3-year plan for Cox Creek and for Wild Horse. I thought it was pretty attractive pricing wise. I mean, it's not cheap, but they were willing to come back after they did all of their homework, and maybe that would be a place where we could do some joint ventures with them, because it's gonna do what they were looking for, and we'd have our own side too. So I wouldn't rule that one out. I thought it was more optimistic than anything we received from the state as far as looking down the road, and it was laid out over a 2 to 3 year plan, so it wasn't like you have to do it all now. But I'm pretty sure that the money they're getting is not coming through the state, so.
And you're talking about that meeting we held with USGS?
Yeah, then they said to follow up, they came back with cost estimates, which I thought were a lot lower than I thought they were gonna do. Now, I don't know, I mean, there's a lot more work on it, but the only idea is here is that maybe it would be an opportunity that within 2 or 3 different groups, we could get to the same effect of giving it what they're, and Monarch is constantly watching that when the water starts up, so I think they're another one that keeps coming back, checking on it, so.
Didn't we get some, Rick, didn't we get some details, not necessarily like a full-on analysis, but some better understanding of the floodplain there and what the depth, the max depth is? Someone did some depth readings for us.
We did some hydraulic analysis of Wild Horse Creek, so we have a pretty good understanding of the depth of flooding that occurs and what storm will create those conditions. So but I think the bottom line is when you start looking at it in that manner, that whole section of Wild Horse Creek Road from Austin Ford to Centaur is subject to flood. And it may not all flood, but if it's bad enough, it literally almost will. So you almost have to look at a device, and that this is what Captain's looking at, is a device near Austin Ford and a device closer to Centaur to try to keep people out of that entire area. So if this device is as cheap as it seems, and it has the function, the dual function, that might be the way to go. Doesn't have the bells and whistles necessarily, but if it's inexpensive as it seems it could be, then it'd be an easy way to implement it. And I think Public Works has some monies too that we could potentially match or pull from if we need to, but yeah.
So the idea was, this isn't the biggest, bestest thing you can get. It's something that can be done pretty quick, and so that some effort is made, after those meetings that we had, that.
Well, I think the consensus, at least from the council, is we're gonna have to do a lot of this ourselves. The state's not gonna be there. So step by step, anything we could get support with and do long term, I think that's a good way to do it.
Unofficial fact, it's automated, it's not relying on a person contact anything else,
Well, and that was one of the big issues, who's gonna say do it?
If it should go off inadvertently, so what, it's just cautioning people, there is no problem. So
It's a huge stretch. I had, after our last flood event, the supervisor that was working was out there involved in everything going on. I said, give me an idea what was flooding. So he gives me this map, and it wasn't, the entire road is flooded for 2 miles. It's a bunch of pockets.
Yeah.
So it's having 2 signs, one on this end, one on this end, and it's a warning. preventing people from, that's a whole different ballgame. Rick and I had talked about, do you wanna install a permanent gate? And when it floods, an officer will go out there and close the gate and lock it. But then what happens when
Water's down.
I'm not flooded and I'm trying to get out, now this gate's locked and I'm stuck and, it's.
Yeah, all the roads off of there are.
Right.
Well, if there's any sort of rescue opportunity too.
Yeah.
That would just really,
Yes,
that would be tough for us.
we're all
to deal
cutting
with.
each other's locks
Right,
off.
yeah.
So I just had a couple more questions.
Yes, sir.
What was the 96,000 in the capital budget last year for the police budget that we're dropping to 20?
What was that? Can you repeat?
What was in that budget for the
That
96?
was- It was the key card reader. We haven't bid it yet, but we're planning on getting that out this year. That's where the drop came from this year to last.
So we didn't buy it.
We haven't bought it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
No, we plan to still go out to bid for that. There's been some other items that have come up, but the plan is still to get an RFP out there this year. That's what the big expenditure for this year.
So you still have it in your final budget forecast for this year?
Yeah, for this year, but if not, we'll have that at year end report.
So my next question, if I might. I know the council's getting this great report every month. So I just think as we get into a flat budget, we're gonna have all kind of questions on what could we, any areas of what we're doing policing could be done differently. Or if we have to cut, where do we cut? And we don't have property taxes, we don't have that. So I do know that, we've got some, and I don't know if everybody's saying, just the monthly numbers and the year-to-date numbers are being tracked, just pass around if you want. So the council gets that every month.
Right.
And a lot of good comments about, wow, I didn't think that would, that it's down that far. So I would just say as we get further into the budget reviews, not tonight, but I think that's an area where we're gonna have to have answers when they start to look at the calls and the self-initiated calls versus the others and that.
Wildwood is a big city, obviously, it's what the city wants out of this contract. I think we demonstrated, last year that, hey, once we went to 12-hour shifts, that made us a little different, more efficient. We eliminated, 2 of those officer positions because we were fat. We were fat and happy, but we really didn't need them. So, that shows you that we do look at this. How thin do you want to be? I can say that pretty much every major incident that's happened, we have been self-sufficient and handled this in-house without having to draw in other resources. We do have that option, but keep in mind, as a contract, we're fully staffed. Our neighboring precincts are not. And if something major happens, I'll get some bodies, but it might not be as many as I want or need. In the big picture, something super major, and I don't know what that would be, the tornado. We're kind of fortunate that Wildwood's not heavily populated, and where our tornado went through was more property damage. But something like that were to happen, then the department obviously, sends us our Division of Special Operations that has, 50 officers.
And I totally agree. I'm just telling you that you got 4 or 5 new people on the council who've not been through any of this before. And you start seeing them throwing stuff out, let's eliminate this, let's eliminate that.
Right.
We don't want to do that. So I think as long as we do our homework and how we present it back is so key, because I think you've done a great job. And I know in my 28 years, 29 years, it's been a
On the
long.
cost sheet, it shows where the bodies are at. So there's 34 officers. There are 7 on each squad. So there are 2 12-hour shifts for days, 2 12-hour shifts for nights. So when one group's working, the other group's off. That has worked very well for us.
And I think that's what we should take credit for when you present the budget. That's all I'm saying, is those are the type that they don't have a clue. All they see is there's a whole bunch of cars.
Right. There are 2 park officers. There's something underway right now where the city may potentially add another huge chunk of ground with parks and trails.
Not been approved yet.
Well, potentially, I said, so.
But when you're planning it, he has to plan as well, yeah.
Right, so we don't have the 2 guys hoping that other things will happen.
I get it.
These 2 guys, they work opposite shifts, so they're not usually, they may overlap each other. But a lot of positive feedback that they're out in the parks, they're out on trails.
I think it's great, and I'm not saying that there's anything we need to do, I'm just telling you that it's gonna be a very different process with very different people.
Sure.
So we just need, I think we need to be able to step back from it and say, hey, here's why we do it this way.
Right.
So.
But one thing that a lot of people lose sight of, the city of Wildwood is 6 square miles bigger than the city of St. Louis. And I understand population densities and roads and everything else. But we have a relatively, knock on wood, quiet neighborhood. And it's always an ongoing battle of trying to decide if Wildwood is good as it is because of the citizens and the elected officials and the city employees, including the police department, or are we just lucky? And I agree with your comments. We always want to have the information ahead of us so that when the questions are asked, we have the answer. And I think historically, Captain Mundell, I know, has been very good at doing that, as well as the previous commanders out here. So one of the reasons a big thick report like that gets generated is so that when the questions are asked, we have the answers. And you bring up some valid points, Mr. Marshall, and that's about being able to handle the questions when they come up at the time they come up versus saying, we'll have to get back to you. Because when you tell somebody you have to get back to them, it tells them you don't know. So I'm comfortable with the way the police structure is set up in the city. And I know I'm a little biased, but when I compare it to other jurisdictions within St. Louis County, I think Wildwood itself, I say this, and I've said it outside this meeting, and I've said it for years. It comes down to the leadership of the organization to determine how stable it's going to be. And by the leadership of the organization, when you're talking about a city, you're talking about the elected officials and the individuals employed by that city. And that is the linchpin that holds that community together. When you get outside of that, when there starts to be fractures in that and people not being attuned to what's going on, then you start having problems. So you bring up valid points. There's going to be questions that are asked by people who are not trying to be mean, they're just trying to be informed. And it's our job to have that information available.
This is just around, and just looking into this a little further too, just as a somewhat decent comparison. I will say that, Baldwin for fiscal year 2025, we were able to do a little digging. I mean, they have 60 officers and they've got 31,000 residents. So they're not officers, that's 60 total in the department. But they're also spending, upwards of almost $9 million too. So that said, we've been kind of looking at some population trends and it seems pretty consistent that we are getting the best bang for our buck for the number of officers we have.
Thanks for bringing that up. The one item on there that looks vague, support and indirect cost, that's our behind the scenes, that's dispatch support, record room support, our Division of Criminal Investigation. So there's an officer assigned here whose job is as our precinct detective. He handles pretty much the minor in-house stuff that needs to be followed up on. He's my right hand, so when I get a complaint about something, go handle this. Whereas if we have a homicide, that's our Division of Criminal Investigation. We're gonna get about 10 detectives, that come out here. They're not sitting here waiting for the homicide to happen. They're busy in other places, but they're always at our disposal. Along with, as Jeff said, the Divisional Special Operations, Air Support Tactical Unit. When we have those situations, that's what we get. Our crisis intervention team, we have a lot of incidents involving mental health situations, and we handle them at the face of it, but the follow-ups and resources behind the scenes that help us get people into hospitals, get them down the right avenue of treatments, that comes from our crisis intervention team out of headquarters. So
Crisis intervention team, I'll throw out a bone to them. If you go back prior to crisis intervention team, whenever you had people who were under duress and law enforcement were called, it usually resulted into a barricade situation with streets closed and 36 police officers surrounding a house. The crisis intervention team takes up 40 hours of training directly to those frontline officers who are then able to resolve a lot of those incidents without escalating it. And at the end,
In the interest of full disclosure, I was opposed to it 30 years ago. However, I have become a believer.
You were crazy then.
Yeah, I was one of the, never mind.
And not to pass up that when we're involved in those situations, generally, the fire district's right with us.
And I just really appreciate what everybody's, but I'm telling you, you had council members who don't have a clue what everybody does. And unfortunately, they're one of 16 votes that decide how the city's gonna be run. So I just think the more we can communicate as what is being included, I know that we went through that several years ago on each of the, how many of the officers have that training, so that it's just one more thing that we're trying to provide. But, you know, you have a lot of people who just have a different perspective, so.
I can see a lot of value in educating them of all the behind the scenes, just, county-wide resources that provide support or are available that they don't.
Yeah.
There is no cost that is there. I think those soft.
So
services are
basically,
important for them.
Thomas, so is the original contract written in such a way that unless we ask for something different, it's capped at 5% increase? Is that?
That's correct. So if we were to.
So realistically, if it goes up 5%, no one should be, and that's if we don't change anything.
That's if we don't.
Pretty
change
much
anything.
expect.
But they can still ask,
Yeah,
say we
well,
don't
sure,
wanna go
but-
up, we need to
And I think
reduce.
you made a good point. And granted, these are the individual officers, but all the support resources that are available that we may never use in a year, but if we do, they're there. I mean, there's a charge for that, so.
I'd suggest that, if you want, do you want to do a future meeting at our Emergency Operations Center so that the board could see the behind the scenes? Here's our EOC, this emergency management staff, and on the other half of the building is our communication center that's where all of our calls go to. And it's a huge operation. They have a great building over there, but it's something to see. I mean, it's a huge room full of a lot of people doing a lot of stuff at the same time.
Emergency management's under the police department still, correct?
Yes,
Does the city have access to that as well, or is that,
Yep.
okay, so
absolutely.
that's a tremendous benefit right there.
We're already talking about some possible programs that emergency management could put on for the staff and elected.
Yeah,
officials.
that's a big benefit.
Like you said, educating those other numbers and on things like, just as you say, with flight ops down there. If they were to pay for a helicopter for 6 hours for searching for somebody, there went a big chunk of the budget
Oh,
that
right.
they were paying for. And then it's probably loaded $1,000 an hour there, that you're not paying for.
Just a side note, I got a grant for a traffic enforcement project using it. We had an airplane at the time. I think the airplane's gone now. And helicopters. And to fly the helicopter for an hour was several $100s. To fly the plane was cheaper. So they're like, use the plane. But that was, on the interstate, they just circled the interstate and timed people and we wrote the tickets. So.
Yeah, those are those supports that are there that they don't understand.
And we did it after the tornado. The lieutenant, I said, we need to see this from above. We don't have a drone, but we have a helicopter. So lieutenant went up in the helicopter and basically flew the path of the tornado from wherever it started down around 44. And he's like, this was awesome to look at this from the sky and see where just the devastation that this thing did as it moved up and through Wildwood. So we took some video of that and passed that on for
We have
their
that,
help.
we have that footage available. That is a resource. That said, I know that tornado, that one was the one that really, kicked Wildwood a little bit this year. And unfortunately, that one it got resident support, so residents could reach out if they had damage from FEMA. They could get loans to help rebuild their homes or make improvements that they had to get back up and get in good shape. But for the city, they didn't actually award funding. That said, that video footage was still submitted and would have most likely played a very crucial role in establishing. That said, it just didn't. Unfortunately, just a note on that storm, the soccer fields that got damaged that were gonna trigger that assistance actually ended up being covered by their insurance. So that put us below the threshold. So just an update on that too, but it's a very nice resource when you have a storm like that to be able to get that footage. It's something that other cities weren't able to provide to the state organization and the federal organization.
Any other questions, comments?
Any other questions or discussions regarding the police contract? Next item of business is the deer management proposal for 2026.
All right, thank you.
Do we need to approve them?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we didn't have anything on that.
I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
All right, we're gonna back up here. We've had a lengthy discussion regarding the proposed police expense budget for 2026. Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion to.
I just have a question. Are there, do you want us to approve this also, or is this informational?
That'll be, right, and so actually, that's a good question, thank you. If you don't mind providing a motion to approve the cost sheet, but then also incorporating the, if everyone on the board here is okay with that, proceeding with that version, and then the department will work that into its draft that it has, that it's cooking right now. We'll have that distributed.
So you're looking for two motions.
Yeah.
You're looking for two motions, one to support
The
the
cost
police,
sheet that's been submitted and then,
support the cost sheet.
yep, cost sheet, and then the other to incorporate the capital equipment document that's been distributed to them.
All right.
I move that we recommend approval to the council of the budget and capital cost wish list.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Board recommends approval. All right, next item, deer management proposal 2026.
Thank you, Marshall. Wanted to give a quick update to the group here tonight. I know we've been discussing this for the last, this is gonna be our third year, so good news on that front. We've actually made some very, very good strides in this regard to be able to start curbing the overpopulation of deer in Wildwood. That said, we do have a proposal from White Buffalo. This proposal will be slightly modified. This item has been reviewed by the Administration and Public Works Committee as well. And one of the major components of it, and we could share a map here too that Dustin's gonna put on the screen. But right now, the way that the Northeast one, which was year one's project area, a little bit of maintenance work specifically on two different HOAs that have some common ground that did not participate last year. We're getting some traction actually on both of them now, so we're hoping to incorporate them as well. But really the focus is gonna be on the SE1 region. And once we put this up, it's not necessarily following the most traditional boundaries, but it's going to be taking the SE1 region, which includes where we're at here, up to 100, all the way down to Old State Road going south. That said, we'll have it up here in a second to kind of show what we're thinking, but the idea is the SE1 region, to refer back to some of the population surveys that have already taken place. We had a population survey done in 2020 and also in 2025 for the SE1 region, and both of those studies showed approximately 40 deer per square mile in that area. So it was in 2020, we saw in the SE1 40.3 deer per square mile, and then in 2025, we saw that number increase just a bit to 42.9. The goal of not the goal, but the target level that MDC recommends is 20 deer per square mile. That said, for the NE1 and NE2 region, both of those areas were much more densely populated. It just, it is what it is, but it was at 94 in the NE1 region and 60.7, sorry about that, 64.2 in the NE2 region. So those areas, they just happen to have a lot more density. So the problem here is that in the proposal, there's less deer that they're planning to cull because our target is actually 40, not 20 deer per square mile. So that was something that was established by the council. So there's two changes that would impact what is being proposed tonight. One, we want to do maintenance in here that's going to be really trying to get up in the Manchi property. We're looking at how much it would cost to potentially get insurance to cover the spread, if you will. He wants $5 million in liability, which is pretty large, but we're going to see if the city could maybe bridge the gap. And then also we had some gaps in this area here. It's the Wild Horse subdivision, and then you had Garden Valley, Shepherd Oaks. We actually have a council member in Shepherd Oaks who's going to be able to help us get some access to the common ground. But those were really the two areas that had a few, really just not enough property access. So we're going to be returning there. Also, we are going to be returning to the area adjacent to 100 here. But the idea is maintenance work really in the NE1 and NE2 region while coming down and focusing on the SE1 region in 26. The special culling zone that we're kind of calling it is we're gonna, clearly here with the NE1 and SE1, we're gonna be sandwiching Highway 100 and that, at least half of it anyways. And the majority of deer vehicle collisions are happening on 109 or 100. We also do see deer collisions on Old State Road, Shepherd, Strecker, Allenton. That's really where this is all happening. It's on the higher speed traffic roadways. And the idea is 0.25 miles to the west. And obviously for Old State Road, about 0.25 miles south. We're almost gonna hug this area because if you've looked at a property map of the SE1 region, first and foremost, we wanna make sure we're including the areas that have a little bit more density, which is the SE2 region. But also there's not many 3-acre properties along Manchester here. So you actually start opening up a bit down here. We have property access for 2 individuals here. And we also have community park over here that could serve, and those deer are actually living in the same area. But the overall goal tonight is to incorporate what's proposed here while also expanding this special culling zone, if you will, along these streets, and then also returning back to the NE1 and NE2 region. That will slightly change the estimate they have for the total number of deer that they plan to cull, and we do expect it to increase probably to around about maybe 275 to 300, depending on their calculations. The only other component that was discussed by the Administration and Public Works Committee and should be a topic of discussion at this board as well is the target level, the goal level for our city. So right now we had set it to 40 deer per square mile as our is where we want the population to be. That does affect how many deer they're going to be able to cull in a set period of time. We pay them for their time and processing of the meat. It's not for an individual like, hey, it's per head or anything like that. So if we're able to utilize their time efficiently, we can actually remove more deer within the areas that they need to be removed from and pay the same cost. So that's the idea tonight, is to request feedback. Something the Administration Public Works Committee was willing to discuss and get numbers for was, what is the impact if we change that number to 30 to 35 deer per square mile for these areas? So that's going to increase the number of deer, wouldn't really increase the cost except for the processing. And the only other component I'd include there is that we would be planning to move forward and just going over the culling operations. We would be pushing for 2 open houses in November if approved by the council. And we would also be having pre-site visits in early December, culling operations starting to take place in January after a 2-week baiting period. That said, first 2 years of the program have been widely successful. 661 deer have been effectively removed and donated or tested through MDC. So overall, it's been a pretty good program, and we're excited to re-engage with White Buffalo. They've been really good to work with. That said, very able to answer any questions. We would plan to have an update at the next meeting too, just keeping everyone informed of how it's going.
Do you have any landowners outside of these zones?
Yes, we do.
Requested that, you set up shop on their property?
Yep. So the way it's set up on our website now, if you go to, if anybody's listening, cityofwildwood.com/deer management, the first thing on the homepage just says provide feedback. Underneath it explains we want access to property is vital because you need an even distribution of sites. That said, we've gotten individuals that have reached out that live all over the city. We have over 275 folks that have submitted forms to participate in some way or fashion. That said, not all of them have read through the materials and know that they're in this year's program. The way we try to get a hold of those folks to localize it is we actually do send letters out to people that have a little bit over 2.5 acres or more in these areas. Typically, we start generating quite a few responses for the Southeast 1 area and along 109 and Old State Road, that 0.25 mile buffer. That has generated over 30 forms just to date. So it's a pretty successful program when it comes to communication from residents.
So is there kind of a criteria, for lack of a better?
Yep.
So like if you get 500 people that say, come to my property, I'm assuming there's a consistent criteria that decide which properties, if we would go to, those to be the ones.
100%. So the way they look at it, White Buffalo has, an internal process themselves. One item to actually include that should have been brought up with the police too. is that we're actually working to incorporate potentially one of our park rangers as one of our pre-site visit individuals that goes out there and helps do the pre-site visit. He only comes out, Ryan Rotes, the project manager, only comes out in December for pre-site visits. So we need to kind of know where we're at with, if the site's good, because we got to utilize his time. Well, when he comes here, it's about a week that he's here. He visits sites every day, but you can only do so much in that time frame. So the idea is we're gonna be prioritizing 3 acre or more, obviously at the front end. We can work with properties that are a little bit smaller, but once you start getting to less than like 2 acres, it starts to get a little dicey unless you can get an adjacent property owner to participate. But what they're traditionally looking for is typically a relatively flat area, something with a back, like they're not wanting to shoot out into the open space. It's great when they can have like a nice deck or something like that would be able to serve as almost a stand, a blind, and then also have, an area where it's kind of in a clearing where, they can actually put the cornmeal that baits them in. So it's very specific what they're looking for. They also won't put sites right next to each other. So we've had that happen prior years. We've had, 5 or 6 folks on a street reach out to us to participate, which is great, but we only end up putting one baiting station out there because you don't want to, you're going to distribute the population more evenly. And if you only have one guy out there, you get 3 total that are actually, culling, if you will. You want them to all be concentrated and you pretty much knock out a family at a time. You try to hit the mother and the 2 fawns that might be with her and you get them out there as soon as possible. But the idea is to get them all in one localized place. Sure. I can actually show too a kind of a distribution from last year's site too. 1 second. In the meantime, I'm available to answer any other questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wilson.
Do I understand correctly, the meat gets processed and then the city donates it?
That's correct. So the contract requires, and both years it's been the same, and 3rd year it's expected to be the same. When the deer gets cold, it gets removed that same night. It gets transported to a local meat processor. That individual has 2 options practically. It either goes through the meat processor and then gets donated directly to local food pantries through Share the Harvest MDC program, or it goes directly to the St. Louis Zoo. They get part of the permit the city acquires is almost like a permission slip for the St. Louis Zoo to get a certain number of these deer. And what they do with them, they actually move them over to the Eureka Red Wolf Sanctuary, where those wolves, they are not able to eat processed meat. So they actually just give them the carcass. Which serves as a great subsistence for those individual wolves. That said, not a single deer goes to waste. The first year there were some that got tested like full out. Typically, how they'll do it with processing is they will remove portion of the brainstem or the spine to be able to test for any type of chronic diseases before obviously giving that meat away. But in general, the first year we had about 20 or so deer that were they completely dissected them and took them apart to make sure they could get a better accurate reading of what are the issues that may be facing our population. Happy to report they didn't find anything out of the norm, no chronic wasting disease, anything like that. But you start to get that type of disease when you have this type of overpopulation. So luckily it seems to be getting curbed.
And the funding for this contract comes from the general operation?
It does come from the general fund, but back in 2023, this has been a kind of a topic of discussion since it first got kicked in. When the first year happened, it's a large expenditure, quite frankly. It's kind of in the middle of, is this a more of a capital project or is this just a normal operating expense? That said, the council was adamant about including this as at least a 5-year program to roll it out and see the benefits of it. They actually in 2023 moved $1 million into its own dedicated deer management fund to help fund the program for at least the first 5 years, most likely looking like it'll be about 6 years if we do it right.
I know there's been a lot of development of wooded areas into projects recently. Has there been any thought given to requiring the developers to contribute to that fund because they are essentially eliminating the habitat for these deer, causing them to move?
I haven't seen, the department could do some research on that. I haven't seen anything in any other city's laws about that. I don't know if we can actually tie it directly to it. I know right now we do a traffic generation assessment based off the number of parking spots practically that they're adding. There would have to be some further research, and I don't know if legally we could do it, but it's not a bad idea. Just a thought.
Well,
Just a question, you know, I listened the other night at Admin and Public Works, the extensive discussion you guys had. A great point I thought was made, because I know there's been discussion from the bow hunters about their participation. And somebody said, well, yeah, we would hope that they would do their best, do their part in it, you know? And the question I have regarding that is there a way that in Wildwood, they could get a license or I'm not a hunter, that a permit that says if you're hunting in Wildwood, instead of getting one deer, you can get 6 deers, and that would make them happy and address the issue.
Honestly, that would be very nice. We do have, so there's a couple items within that question. It's a good question. One, people can hunt in Wildwood. You know, it is something that, in the Share the Harvest program is active in Wildwood. You can get those types of tags. You reach out to MDC, so they could donate the food as well if they've already filled their freezer. The other side of that, though, is the city could, and we've tried to reach out to MDC on this. They haven't been too receptive about kind of giving the lease out, if you will. They work with White Buffalo quite a bit, but that said, we've kind of pushed them on that to say, hey, could we somehow tie in that if you're in Wildwood, since we have this issue, maybe it issues more tags. They haven't been very receptive. The other side of it, and just to note it more on the bow hunting, it is something we want to support those hunters, because if they are able to, you know, cull the herd themselves, and we can set it down, and trust me, that I think the whole team here would be happy for them. But there are firearm regulations. I did talk with a couple residents today that were asking if they don't hunt themselves, but they said they've got some reach outs. Those folks, I just recommended that, yes, please, I mean, you're more than welcome to do it, but just please read, and I sent over the firearm regulations. I would just mention it is a little bit, I almost call this a strategic culling operation each year that we do, because I mean, last year it was 361 deer in like 25 days. I mean, that's just something that, quite frankly, you'd have to really have some skill with the bow.
Oh, and I think you should keep this. I'm just saying enhance the other part, and it'll help with the problem.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that's it. Folks want to reach out to us, we can, and we've tried, the other thing too, and I'll speak on that a little bit. We have tried to reach out to some of the property owners that reach out to us that might not be in our area for that year's operation. We've asked them a couple times, hey, this idea of almost creating a portal, not necessarily publishing information on a website or anything, because you don't want people's private information getting out to the public, but something that, hey, we know this hunter likes to hunt this time of year, they get their tags, they do everything right. Could we connect them with people that maybe aren't in the area for that year? And the residents that we've talked to thus far, it's always a question we add after we've convinced them to let us work with them. But there are folks that they get a little uncomfortable with the idea unless they know the person. If they always have that caveat, well, if it was a person I knew, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But they always then ask, do you know these people? And not necessarily, we haven't vetted them. And that's where you start having to get a program in there to vet them. And the easiest solution would be for MDC to possibly increase their tax, and that's something.
Is the LaSalle property in this year's target area? Did it go down that far? I'm just wondering, that seems like a big tract of land that.
It's along there. It's on Olds.
It'll be, that one, it's close enough to where if we need to, it could be.
I didn't know if that, I don't know who owns that now, but they'd be interested in big chunk of land.
It is. Well, they're definitely, they most likely have already gotten a letter.
Question, Thomas, I know we posed a question last year about carcass processing. So I was looking, MDC sent out a thing today saying, hey, we need more hunters to do Share the Harvest. So I struggle, and that's not paid for by the state. That's independently paid for. I mean, I was looking at the whole group. It's paid for by Bass Pro and Gateway Area Chambers, like all kinds of different groups. But it would seem like they're looking for more meat to be donated. They pay for processing. Here's this clean, boom, 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 that there'd be some pitch to sell that to them. You know, hey, we'll do it. Here's how it's organized. It'll be over the days, all brought at once. I don't know. It just seemed, that's 35,000 in there, but
Oh, I agree.
to get rid of that's a.
I don't disagree with you. I think MDC kind of looks at it as they know we're going to do it and they're gonna do the program and they're almost like we couldn't do the program if they didn't give us the permit.
Right.
So it's almost, we haven't had success with them, helping us pay for that portion of it. They have not been very receptive. So that's something, quite frankly, we could have someone, that might be something we could do, have MDC, participate in a meeting or two. So
And it's
we can
actually
thoughts of the board.
it's administered by Conservation Federation of Missouri.
That's to share the harvest, yeah.
Yeah, they share the harvest. And then there's private funding underneath all that. That's where Bass Pro Shop and a lot of those are the ones who are providing the funds for that.
And is that more recent than this year? Is that like that
I
announcement you
That's
said?
kind of what I looked at last year, and I just got the email today. It was today saying, hey, we need more hunters. You always step up. We need more hunters. And I'm like,
We'll look back into that
Yeah.
and see if they have any updates for us.
and I don't know if even like, they have two processors in St. Louis County is maybe the end around going to them also and saying, hey, can you help us sell this?
Yeah, and I know that the processors are a little tricky just because they have, the ones they go to, they're usually hunting really at night, it's right around this time, they'll hunt till about 11, 12 o'clock in some instances. That said, the deer processors, they almost have like a special agreement set up with these folks because they need to get the deer taken care of right then. So that might have a role to play because typically they have normal standard business operating hours. This one, they kind of allow these late night walk-ins, if you will, with all these deer. So that's what at least has been explained to us, but we can go ahead and ask again.
All right, any other discussion on the deer management proposal?
Marshall, if you don't mind, could we get, if the board is supportive, and we can have that as part of it too, to look into the deer processing portion of it, but in a motion to recommend moving this to the city council, the agreement with the modifications, which includes kind of expanding the zone and also if anybody wanted to discuss the 30 or 35 target goal versus 40, that would be also up to discussion. But right now, the committee that had reviewed it had been at review 30 to 35 to see what that does to the numbers and then come back with that to the council.
So in order for us to get down to 30 to 35 per square mile, that's obviously gonna impact the numbers that they have to take.
Yep, that's correct.
And so I guess my question would be, before we try to get down to 35 or 30, are we at 40 where we wanna be?
So right now, where we're at, and there's a variance because it is just human collected data with the translates that get followed, but in the SE1 region, we're about 42.8 is what was recorded this year. That's pretty close to where we're targeting, so that didn't really allow them too much wiggle room to be able to actually go in and really curb the herd, if you will. They do account for it's a conservative number, 1.2% recruitment rate, which is just the repopulation of the deer each year. So that is worked into it, kind of shows that the population will keep growing. But it would increase, really what we would do is you would increase the price slightly with the carcass processing, but the overall days they spend here would not really change. You would actually end up seeing the cost per deer go down.
So increasing the number harvested to reduce the number per square mile.
Yep.
At the end, how will that impact the price of the contract?
So they are getting paid so when you look at the agreement, I'll pop this back open. When you look at the agreement, you'll notice that it has, the sharpshooting, other supplies, the mileage, like really, it's a nonprofit organization. So they're covering their costs plus the people the employees that are paid to be out here. It's 4 people individually, 3 sharpshooters and 1 guy that serves as the removal individual. That said, the one cost that really will change, unless there's a massive change in the number getting cold. Right now, there's planned for 239. We do think that number will be adjusted upwards to 300 if we make this change. That said, they're going to still be here for 27 days. That's the plan currently. That the only change that would occur is that the processing fee would increase if we can't get MDC to help offset. It would increase and then they would still just be here 27 days. So if the target goes down, they would be able to be authorized to remove more deer in that
So
same
yeah,
time.
so that's my question. So other than the fact that if we take, the base cost is gonna remain the
Yep.
same. That's not gonna change. What may change is if we go down to 35 and they take additional deer, there might be a processing cost
Yes.
reflective of that. And that's what you're looking for the board to look at.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of hear if the board had, I know that as a community, when we first kind of kicked off this program, 40 was established. You know, we had the recommendation from the MDC at 20 deer per square mile is the target level for, you know, healthy herd communities. And then we decided to put that 40 on there. I think it was partially, you know, because we didn't want to, you know, go overboard, if you will, but also I think, you know, it was getting started, and I think if you looked at it, or to get it down to 20, it would be a pretty monumental task.
So, and this question, I don't mean to put you on the spot. So let's assume that we say, yeah, let's try to take it to 35. Do we have enough money allocated to cover? All right, so that would be my
We
question.
would still get through we're on pace now to get through the first full 5 years, no problem, and we should be sailing right in.
So anybody
Just
on the
curious.
board, anyone on the board have questions on what he's saying?
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of curious. It's like, if for the 27 days they're sharpshooting, if we want them to take more, they will. But if we only want to take so many, isn't it possible to do it in less than 27 days then?
Well, I mean,
I'm just kind of, it's like, we can do more if you want that day, but do more on
they're
something.
saying that this is how many this is the number of days they need to be out here, especially in the SC1 region where they're just gonna stop pulling the trigger because they've already met their quota for that area. So that's the whole conservation part. They're using an equation to be at 40 deer per square mile. And typically, when we've done the density studies, you see a couple roads that are a little bit more dense than others, you just get more sightings. So they are gonna target in on those, and they'll probably be more there than over there, one area than over another. That said, it's really comes down to they're still having to visit all these sites. They still need the same number of sites. It's just how many times are they going to so and so pull the trigger.
Mr. Wilson?
So they get paid for their time. Is there any tie-in to their success rate? I mean.
No. We can report that the first 2 years they did meet their quotas. The second year they went 6 over. We got an amendment from MDC. So the good news about this, I mean, at least for the sense that, you know, and folks want to question like, hey, you know, the surveys and the actual density itself, if they don't meet their quota, that in and of itself says what your density is. That means, hey, you're good to go. If they don't meet their quota, I think that would be a big sign that that area does not need to be.
City's only recourse is, we're not gonna use you next year.
Yep.
So
That's correct.
And I'm just ballparking here. Do we know roughly how many and here's what I'm getting at. Let's assume we say, let's go for 30, means we're taking 10 additional per square mile. And we know roughly what the cost is per deer. How many square miles are we talking about total?
It's a little less, I know it's about more than 5, I think it's like 6 square miles or so. It's not all too large.
So we're really only talking about taking on, best case scenario, another 60 deer.
Yes, but there is, and I'd have to get my spreadsheet out, but there is also the recruitment level that they incorporate in there. So it's not just simply taking the number of deer in a certain area and then just multiplying it out by per
I
deer
understand,
level.
right.
It incorporates that conservative 1.2, which is on the low end, and then that's your total number for that year.
So, and yes, Mr. Gleason.
Just another quick one. I know we have somebody oversee it from Wildwood, a retired, I don't know if Brad's still doing that this year.
He wants to bow out, but one of the park officers will.
Okay, is that paid for through this, or is that?
The park is, oh yes, so that is not paid for through this. Sergeant Windling, it was not a very large contract. It was like about a little bit over $1,000 or something like that for each year. It was not anything crazy. That said, his park ranger will be included as part of the services provided to the city. That is coded though under the deer management fund as a deer management expense. So that'll save us a little bit of money, but in the grand scheme of things, the
I'm
majority of the
just
cost.
curious where that, I didn't see it in there where that hit. Okay.
This is, this year, I think will be a lot more controversial with our bow hunters. You know, they spent half an hour or so Monday night, half an hour or so Tuesday night, because they believe that we're totally eliminating all the deer. in Ward 3. And, they want to make sure that their grandkids can go hunting with them and all that. So, and they're residents, so you just have to be really careful. But they haven't been that way in the past. And so before we talked about trying to make sure nobody knew where we were doing the baiting, these guys are gonna be all over it. So I just think that's another part that we have to be aware of. A little bit different this year, because they would just assume we don't allow that. They should be not allowed to use guns. They should be using bows.
So they don't want it to be challenging. They want it to be
Correct.
easy. Just want to make sure.
And a lot of their stuff you just can't argue with them, but there wasn't a whole lot of truth in the information that they had to start with, even in the numbers, so.
And that does tie in, more so from the property access standpoint. The thing that, does concern, at least from the recruitment side for trying to get folks to join up is, those folks, obviously everything we do is public record. So they could potentially, we knock on the door and then right after that, they're knocking on the door to say, I can do it. Don't listen to the city. So the hope is we're actually planning to meet with them, that group, to see if there are ways to incorporate them and figure out if that connection can be made. That said, if a resident that we talk to that does have property doesn't want their information shared with the hunting community, we're not gonna share it. They can request it if it's a public record, but typically we don't have that, unless they sign up.
So I guess the question I would throw out to the board is, do we want to authorize White Buffalo to go for a target of 35 or 30, understanding that they're not gonna take all of them from one zone?
Yeah.
When they reach their target number in one zone, they move to another zone.
That's correct.
So how do we need to
Yeah.
verbalize that to be,
Well, we need to, I think what
adjust down to third? I'm just trying to get exactly.
I think what Mr. Lee is looking for is a motion from this board to support White Buffalo attempting to achieve a target reduction to 30 or 35.
That range is helpful because we're gonna get numbers back for both.
Do you want one or the other, or just that?
Well,
range?
I mean, quite frankly, 30 would be.
I would say let's
35 might be-
authorize White Buffalo to attempt a target range of taking the necessary steps to reduce the herd to a population between 30 and 35 deer per square mile.
So moved.
A second.
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
What did we do in the admin committee? I thought we sent you, we gave you a number.
We did.
So are we gonna get conflicts of different numbers then? For boards
Admin
of
committee
public
said
safety and
30, to
admin?
get numbers for 30 to 35 and bring them both back to council. That was my,
Yeah, just as long as they're both the same number.
Oh, okay,
It's
yeah,
kinda
it
silly
was-
for us to give
yeah.
a number,
Gotcha.
and admin has already done
Yeah.
a number.
yeah, that's
all.
why I was kind of pushing on that.
Yeah.
At the committee meeting, just so everyone's clear there too, and this is recorded as well. The discussion was go back, get 30 to 35, see how that impacts the numbers and bring that to the city council once we have the contract up for discussion.
So we've had the motion, we've had discussion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposition, motion carries. Right, next item is proposed parking restrictions on West Glen Farms Drive at Green Pines Elementary. I think before we get discussion on this, I think we touched on this earlier, that we have traffic congestion on a narrow road. Not traffic congestion, but lane restrictions when people show up early to access the parking lot to pick up students at Green Pine. So the question is will the board support the addition of, or the installation of additional parking restrictions as reflected up here, Mr. Watt?
I guess I would just ask the the people are still gonna pick their kids up. So where are we pushing this line to?
They just need to come on time, as I
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah, that would be great.
Well,
But what do you think's really gonna happen?
With that gate being closed, that their little driveway there will accommodate 2 cars. So the first 2 get there first, and then the rest, they were coming early. School gets out at 3:20.
Let them do that. So
People read their book out there.
So if we post it, will you guys write it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cause I know that
They had 20 lined up there early on, but it's done much better now.
those same 20 people are gonna be somewhere.
Same parents, they're gonna come back to drop them off tomorrow too.
I understand what Mr. Loyle's saying, those same 20 people are gonna be somewhere else, but they won't be on this downhill curve. Parking on the other
They
side.
can park further up the street where
So
it's
there's-
okay, or there's a side street, Babbler.
I just want to save this slide so that
Review.
a year from now, when the pink line goes up there.
That's a bigger.
To your point, you've been, in 15 minutes, problem solved. I mean,
Yes.
and it's a,
It is a
unfortunate-
short-term issue
I know.
and, you know, I already told traffic guys, I said, go park across the street from the gate so that they see that we're there and they need to make a lap. If they,
There you
if they
go,
come a couple minutes early, they need to make a lap, so. But like we said, once the gates open, it's just traffic immediately turning in there and they're gone.
Kevin, to confirm, I mean, you said that the people are able to line up in the front portion too, right?
They can go down to the main entrance in the front of the school and park there. They typically want those people to be like picking up early or special purpose type of things. The buses go in the front entrance.
Both of them.
Both buses.
All two.
There's only two.
And a taxi cab, right?
Yeah.
I think that's about it, but, so there are parents that if they get there late or whatever, once the gates close, they gotta go to the front, you know, to begin with, so.
You know, if we open this up for discussion, I would say this, I think that restricting parking there from my opinion, is a good idea, because the minute we start allowing people to park along there, eventually we're gonna have parents telling their kids, hey, just run up the street. Now we got kids moving in between moving cars and parked cars on a street that goes downhill around a curve, parking allowed on both sides. I think that this is something that's predictable and preventable, and we put the parking signs up to at least say that we did our part.
That's actually what happened on the other side of the school. The parents
other
would tell
two
their kids,
streets.
tell them you're a walker. So then the kid would walk to the edge of the property and then be running across the street because their parents were waiting on the other side. So we've restricted that parking already, right?
People did their own
To
up, make them think they're being
prevent the
watched.
waiting.
Does that mean, I know we say no parking, is that no parking or does it need to be like up above where there's no parking?
It just says no parking ever. So
No parking at
it's
all.
not like during school or on
No,
weekends.
I
or
just
what-
meant sometimes where they're like, well, I'm not parked, I'm.
Yeah,
This impact the
Some
residents.
of them I thought we had no parking standing or.
yeah, we do, but not here. These will be no parking ever.
Would
Say
this,
no.
would
Well,
this
and I think
impact
what I-
residents?
No, because nobody lives on that side
Okay.
from where it starts.
Right.
What I do think might happen though, is they will probably queue up in front of those homes above the no parking signs, which then puts the rear end of the cars out in that four-way stop sign in the intersection. So it'll be another one of the issues.
Right.
But so far,
We got signs for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bashed up cars.
Sign for that.
Invariably, that will happen in the first couple of days while people get used to it.
It's great now, though. It's much better than it's been.
I think that is the right move.
Yep.
For a lot of reasons.
It's just in the red area, correct?
Yeah. And you know, there's about 12-headed deer that live in that woods right there that we can't shoot. But there are 12 deer in there. I've never been down there or walked around it that I couldn't at least find 4 of them in it, just behind the school and behind those houses on Forest Leaf. Just tons of them.
My Buffalo will be glad to go there.
Because they come on up to my house after that. They're terrible.
You can't have a gun within, what, 1,000?
Yep, 100 feet.
What do I do if I live within 1,000 feet of the school?
You can't shoot them there either.
I think like well, I'd have to actually look at the code provision there. If you
Alright,
like
we
live within
digress.
1,000 feet
We
and if
digress.
you are at your home and you have it legally possessed.
I thought it was 300 feet from the house.
I think that might.
I solved the problem.
450
My wife has 2 Australian Shepherds. We never have to worry about deer.
Here's 1,000-foot rule. somewhere.
I actually have 6 deer that live in my backyard.
All right, so I think the purpose of the discussion was to decide if we
Yeah.
want to make a motion to support the installation of no parking signs along the south side of West Glen Farms in the area indicated in red.
And just one other,
Yes, sir.
does the principal know that that's the
Oh,
plan?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll credit her with, she's taken a lot of.
She's doing a
heat.
good job. She's trying really hard.
She, and it was all in the interest of there was too much going on with kids crossing between cars. She's like, this has gotta stop, something's gonna happen, so she's done a great job.
Always easier to say, why did you versus why didn't you do something about it?
So you need a motion.
I need a motion to support the installation of no parking signs on the south side of West Glen Farms at the area indicated in red.
I make that motion.
Second. Motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Motion passes in support of installation of stop signs in the area indicated on red.
parking.
Display.
That's Tom.
Sorry.
No parking.
Oh, no parking, I'm
signs,
sorry.
stop signs.
Did you want to vote?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed?
And you're okay with it, right, Ed?
Motion
It's already up. They look
Okay.
great. You guys are so fast.
carries.
That was yesterday or the day before they went up, so.
All right, next item on the agenda is miscellaneous. I show no items. Mr. Brown, do we have any last minute items that we need to address? Next meeting date is December the 11th. I believe it's the second Thursday of the month. And at this point, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second for adjournment. Any discussion? Favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. This meeting